Hello and welcome to the University Duel Podcast, where we talk about university life and more. Today I have with me someone that I'm just going to allow to introduce himself. So can we get to meet you?
Have yours, listeners, as the case may be. My name is Tunmbi Williams. I'm an environmentalist by profession. I'm an architect by training, and I'm a design thinker.
Oh, that's interesting. But just to get to the topic of today, we're here to talk about the best generation in the world. You know what I mean?
Second best.
I'm not even going to answer that. We're here to talk about Gen Zs. We get a lot of hate unnecessary. I don't know why y'all hate us. But do you think Gen Zs are ready for the job market? Or is the job market ready for Gen Zs?
Well, to not offend, I don't want to offend any Gen Zs in the making of this production, so I cannot I can't categorize them all. So
Okay.
Gen Zs are different, they are diverse. So one thing about Gen Zs is diversity, right?
Okay.
So it depends on who you're talking to, but I think that for the generations that exist now in the world, yes, they are the most predisposed, they are the most ready, because, I mean, you guys came up on the internet, and it's an internet economy.
Yeah.
It's an information economy. So yeah, I think so. So it's
So a lot of people, you guys know we're one, but let me play the devil's advocate. A lot of people have a lot of issues with Gen Zs, primarily regarding their attitude to work and just like, so for example, I was on Twitter one day and I was seeing how there was this girl that wore shorts to an interview.
Okay, that's wild.
And she's American, so but she wore shorts to an interview, and it wasn't bad that she wore shorts. What was really bad was the fact that she felt like she was being discriminated against, because like the interviewer was like, how would you wear shorts to the interview? So she didn't really think that was a bad thing. So do you think that Gen Zs have the right attitude and awareness of what an official setting is? And are they like another thing is that they're always saying that any small thing will say our mental health. So do you think we have like the strength to take on the rigor of the job market, especially in Nigeria?
Okay, so everything is contextual. Well, almost everything is contextual,
Yes.
And it depends. So in the scenario that you painted, it depends on the job interview. So, I mean, maybe Gen Zs need to learn. So, okay, from the background I'm coming from, how you dress is how you will be addressed.
Yes.
So, it depends on the kind of institute or office she was going to. If she was going to apply for a tech role, where she's maybe a developer, she's going to be at the back end, she's probably going to work remotely, maybe 20 days out of 30 days. That's fine, but I still don't agree that you should wear shorts to an interview. When you're going to an interview, you should be on time, you should look presentable, you don't have to be fashion, just wear regular shirts, trousers, just talking, nice shoes, that's all. It's still comfortable enough to navigate the streets of Lagos in that, so I don't think you should wear shorts. So, and then as to Gen Z's work culture, so I think again it's contextual, because I've met Gen Z's that are, for lack of a better word, beasts. These guys have massive work ethic. So Gen Z's are naturally entrepreneurial. And to be an entrepreneur is not beans. It's not as easy as salaried 9-to-5 employment, even though people think it's not as easy, because you have to think on your feet. So and that's where the kind of dressing, their mode of dressing comes. So a Gen Z would likely want to wear something they are comfortable in and they can face any situation in. So they are not really going to dress official for that interview. They're like, okay, look, if I'm taking a bus and I need to do this, that, this on the way, that's how they're going to dress. So I think some corporate culture, some work culture can change. I think with the advent in COVID 2020, the advent of work from home and all that probably has not helped the dressing. But I think every institution should define their dress code, their culture, and then you also hire who fits. So maybe she wasn't a good fit for that environment. But if she was going to get hired for a job in media, nobody cares. You're behind. You understand?
Well, I think that's a very interesting take, and I like that you mentioned COVID, because I was going to circle back to that. I think that COVID-19 really changed the landscape of work culture, because, like, for example, during COVID, I was in my final year. I wrote my exams. I did everything online. So I'm transitioning from that, and like the first job I'm having is online, and so that's at one side. But the way the internet works now, a lot of jobs are also online.
Yes.
I could become a content creator, and I'm making like times 3 what my mom that has been
Yes,
working in
has
one
working
corporate
for-
setting
yeah.
since has been doing, and then you now come and say I should wear skirts and all of that. So
Yeah.
I think that is one of the reasons. But do you, just to throw a spanner in there, do you then think that we have an abusive work culture in Nigeria that Gen Zs are not ready to undergo? So it's like I have a job, I'm an intern,
Yeah.
but it's me that is doing all, because we understand the social media space more, and people are making, a lot of businesses are on social media because they know that's where they get the bulk of their clients.
Attention.
So because you're saying I'm an intern, I don't have experience, it's me that is cracking this code. You cannot crack this code.
Yes.
But you want to pay me, I had a job, I'm not going to mention their names, but you know themselves. They were paying me 19K. Like they couldn't even make it 20.
Imagine.
And I was doing social media, and I was an assistant to
ED or
the
something.
founder.
Okay.
And when I was leaving, he was like, oh, I impressed him, blah, 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 that the only thing he's going to say is that I need to work on my emotional intelligence and my attitude. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to work on that, because I was put in very terrible, like the office was in Okwebi. I would be coming home as an intern at like 10 p.m. in the night because I'm going to Ikoyi and stuff like that. And maybe a normal millennial or more would take it as that is part of the work. But me, I will go on strike for, if I come back 10 p.m. for the next 3 days, I'm sick. And I'm not sick, I'm at home. Every one day, I felt my way to Yaba to go buy a list. But he doesn't need to do that. So, and after, because there were a lot of unhealthy practices in that space. And after, by the time I went back to school, my mental health did take a toll. Like the way I perceived myself changed. And I think in other generations, people are like, that's life. That's what it is. You have to kind of deal with it. But as a Gen Z, I'm like, no, this person is paying me 19K. A session of therapy is like 25K. And that's for one session. So it's not, and I could make a lot more money not going through that brutal
I'm working
process.
less.
Exactly, I'm working
much
less.
hours.
And so do you think that it's not really about Gen Zs not being prepared for the work market, but the work market actually has to evolve? It needs to be fairer to human capital, especially now that everybody's jack buying.
Yes.
It needs to be fairer to human capital. Like, I've worked in a multinational. I was so shocked how they
the
treated
difference,
people.
yeah.
I was like, what?
Yes,
Do you understand? So
the
do you
HR
think,
department actually
yeah,
works.
how do you think the Nigerian work market can grow and evolve to have just more humane practices that's more conducive for people to work in?
Okay, so yes, I agree with you. And then, but the reality of the situation is, look, you said something. A lot of people want to jackpot.
Yeah.
So now you're not competing. Nigerian brands are not competing against each other alone. They're competing against the services that people can provide on the internet. So I'll give an example. You said you can make so much more doing maybe content stuff. You don't even have to do content stuff. If you're a virtual assistant for someone, a US company, you would make
With
easily times
1.8, I mean, how much is dollar? By the time they
7x.
earn this, dollar might be 2.5.
you make 7x, and then out of your 8 hours, so the only thing is that you have to work like a different time zone cycle and everything. But out of your 8 hours, maybe you work seriously
Exactly.
2 to 4 hours, half of that, and that other 4 hours you have time to learn another skill.
Yes.
So how does a Nigerian company compete with that? That's what, if I ran a company, that's what I'll be thinking about. Look, it's a global talent pool out there.
Yeah.
And if you want to hire and attract, more importantly, these talented people, you have to listen to them. So I think
Absolutely.
Gen Z generation was a culture shock to the workplace culture. Clock in every day, you come in, you do your 9 to 5, you understand, 8 to 5 in Nigeria. You understand that kind of thing. So I think Gen Zs, they brought a shock to that system. And I think I am leaning towards the shock. I think the shock was necessary.
I love that.
Yes, because you're competing. So if you want to stay competitive, then you have to treat people like they matter.
Yeah, and I think it also boils down to, so my first job was in HR, and I think that really opened my eyes to how important people are to a company. But the way the Nigerian market has been for a very long time is the person giving out the employment is the owner of the market. Do you understand? Because people don't have jobs anymore and people are struggling. So if one person quits, tomorrow you have 1,000 people that are vying for that job. But that is really changing and that is evolving. But I think what the Gen Zs are kind of trying to gear us towards in our work culture is to understand that the human beings that you have working for you are your capital, and that they bring value, and that value has to be appreciated through the money that you pay them, which needs to be commensurate. So, for example, somebody brings a job to me and I say, I want ₦1 million for this. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I always tell people when I charge people and they like turn up their nose, I'm like, if you are broke, say you are broke and you can't afford me.
That's a bit rude. I wouldn't put it that way.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't put it that way. But like, if you can't afford me, you can't afford. But don't say that the value of what I'm bringing isn't worth that. We can bargain, but don't reduce my value. Do you understand? And like put me down and say, what are you doing? Because if you could do it, you would do it. You won't pay for that. So I think it's just trying to re-gear the conversation in a way where people are valued and people are treated well. And it's not just, it's so crazy that Gen Zs will leave a job that is paying them more to go to a job that's paying them less, but treating them better.
Yeah, they have a better
and
balance.
also it's also that thing of having a sense of purpose.
Fulfillment.
So, yes, fulfillment.
I
I think maybe because we're more comfortable in these times, you are not working as it were to survive.
Yes, exactly.
You are working because, this is what I love, this is what I want to do. But just to round it up, how do you think, what attitudes or skills or whatever do you think the older generation can learn from the Gen Zs and incorporate? And what do you think the Gen Zs can learn from the older generation and incorporate?
Okay, so the Gen Zs talking to the older generation would say that they need to learn empathy. That's one word that they bandy around. You understand? So what Gen Zs can learn from the older generation, I wouldn't say work ethic, but I would say maybe consistency is the hardest thing.
Yeah, I would say commitment. Yeah.
So yes, because a lot of Gen Zs you speak to, they're like, so I speak to them and they're like, I've been working at my company for a decade, and they're like, that's never possible. Sorry, I'm never going to do that.
I went for a meeting with my mom's friends, and people were like, I've been not even in the same industry. I've been at this job for 35 years.
So the Gen Zs, that's ended with millennials. It's only a millennial that would see that as a career progression and everything. Gen Zs are more flexible, more malleable. They're willing to jump here and now.
So do you think that's a bad thing?
It's not necessarily a bad thing. It depends. It's also contextual. So it depends on your personality mostly, but it also depends on kind of industry you're working. If you're working in media, I think you should jump around different experiences. If you're working in ed tech, you can. So there are various industries that you can jump around and it'll pay you. And then I can't think of an example right now, so I'm not going to try myself.
Okay.
But I just think that in everything in life, you need a balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Gen Zs need the older generations and
Absolutely.
vice versa, because older generation guys need to stay fresh.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that life is more aspirational. You spoke about you want fulfillment and everything. So there's this pyramid, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So Gen Z is like 4th, 5th level, and you're telling them that they should be stuck on second. No, nobody's going to take that from you. They're going to find another option, and they will find it, and they will get paid for it. So
even more than
nothing you can do.
So. Absolutely. So last question, what generation is better, millennial or Gen Z? We all know the answer is Gen Z. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
What do you think?
Asked and answered. I think, honestly, not because I'm a millennial, but I think millennial because we lived in a world that didn't have the internet functional. Okay. So we played outside, we bruised our, we scraped our elbows, we touched grass. I did a lot. So there's a lot of skills that there's a skill gap. But I think that the world that we live in, the Gen Zs are more predisposed to that world because there's also a skill gap that millennials have for that world that we live in. And guess what? We live in that world today. And then the next guys that come in, Gen Alpha.
These people are brutal.
It's going to be madness. So so the answer to your question is both.
Okay, I feel like you should be a politician earlier than you're planning to because you have very political answers. But this was a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and I wish you all the best. And that is all on this episode of the University Duel Podcast. See you next time.